Welcome to the Oracle's Rest, a place where stories unfold slowly, where time softens, and where the mind is free to wander. Tonight, somewhere behind your eyes, in the warm dark of your own head, a slow and quiet handover is already beginning, a nightly changing of the guard, as old as life itself. All day, a part of your brain has held you awake, alert, attentive, and now, gently, that part is beginning to loosen its grip. Tonight, we follow the soft journey the mind makes every single night, the slow slide from waking into sleep. Tonight, we drift through the quiet story of how the brain falls asleep. It is one of the strangest and gentlest things that happens to us. And it happens every night, and we almost never notice it. One moment we are awake, thinking, aware of the room, of the weight of the blanket, of the small sounds of the house, and then, at some point we can never quite catch, we are not. We have crossed over. The waking mind has dissolved into sleep, quietly, without a sound. The way a boat slips its mooring and drifts out onto dark water. No one has ever felt the exact moment of falling asleep, because to notice it would be to still be awake. It happens in a place just beyond our watching, in the soft blur at the very edge of consciousness. And tonight we are going to go there slowly and see how it is done. To understand how the brain falls asleep, we have to begin much earlier in the day, because the pull towards sleep has been building in you for many hours, quietly, steadily, since the moment you woke this morning. There is a kind of pressure that gathers in the brain across a long day of being awake, a growing weight, a slow accumulating heaviness, and it has a beautiful simplicity to it. The longer you are awake, the stronger it grows, the more your brain works through the day, thinking and moving and living. The more this pressure builds, until by the end of the day, it has grown so heavy that it begins at last to tip you toward rest. This pressure has a source, and the source is wonderfully humble. As your brain goes about its work through the day, its billions of cells burning energy to keep you thinking and moving and awake. They leave behind a residue, a byproduct of all that busy activity. A certain substance builds up slowly in the spaces of the brain, molecule by molecule, hour by hour, and as it gathers, it presses gently on the systems that keep you awake, quieting them, dimming them, making you drowsy. Through the whole long day, this substance accumulates, and with it, the weight of sleepiness grows. By evening, there is a great deal of it, and you feel it as that heaviness behind the eyes, that longing to lie down, that soft, insistent pull toward the pillow. This is sleep pressure, and it has been building in you all day, patiently waiting for the night. There is a curious detail here, one you may know from your own life. The reason a cup of coffee can hold sleep at bay is that it interferes with this very system. Caffeine works by slipping into the places in the brain where that drowsy making substance would settle and blocking them, so that the pressure to sleep, though it is still there, still building, can no longer be felt. The sleepiness does not go away. It only goes unnoticed for a while, held back behind a locked door. And when the caffeine at last wears off, all of that accumulated pressure comes flooding back at once. But tonight there is no coffee, no barrier, nothing holding the door. Tonight the pressure is free to do what it has been trying to do all day, which is simply to let you rest. And sleep pressure is only one of the two great forces drawing you down towards sleep tonight. The other is not about how long you have been awake, but about the hour, about the turning of the day toward night. For deep inside your brain, there is a clock. It is a real clock, a tiny cluster of cells that keeps time, that knows, more or less, what hour it is, and that has been quietly counting through the whole 24-hour turn of the day. This inner clock is what makes you feel alert in the morning and drowsy at night, quite apart from how tired you happen to be. It is tuned across your whole life to the great rhythm of light and darkness, of day and night, of the turning earth. The clock reads the light all day through your eyes. The brightness of the world reaches this little timekeeper and tells it that it is day, that it is time to be awake and alert. But as the evening comes on and the light fails, and the world outside your window softens from gold to grey to blue to black, the clock reads the fading of the light and understands that night has come, and it begins to prepare you for sleep. It sends out a signal, and in response, a gentle hormone begins to rise in your blood, a messenger that spreads quietly through your whole body, carrying a single soft instruction. Night has come. It is time to wind down. This hormone does not knock you out. It is not a switch that turns you off. It is more like a tide that begins to rise as darkness falls, a signal of the night flowing through you, lowering your alertness, dimming your inner daylight, telling every part of you that the time for rest has come. As this happens, your body itself begins to change in small, quiet ways that prepare the ground for sleep. Your core temperature, which has run warm through the active day, begins gently to fall. The body sheds a little of its heat, often through the hands and the feet, which grow pleasantly warm as the warmth flows out to the skin, and as the core cools, sleep comes more easily, for the falling of the body's temperature is one of the oldest signals of rest. Your heart begins to slow. Your breathing deepens and evens out. The whole machinery of the body shifts by slow degrees out of the bright key of day and into the soft, low key of night. None of this is anything you must do. It simply happens quietly beneath your awareness. The body preparing itself for sleep the way it has every night of your life. So there are two great forces at work in you now as you lie here. There is the pressure of sleep built up across the long day, grown heavy and insistent, and there is the signal of the clock, the rising tide of the night, telling you that the hour has come when these two forces meet, when the weight of a long day's waking joins with the deep signal of the darkness. The conditions are set. and the brain can begin, at last, to let go. But how does it actually happen? What changes inside your head when you cross from waking into sleep? To see that, we have to look at the great struggle that has been going on all day between the parts of your brain that keep you awake and the parts that would let you sleep. For being awake is not something that simply happens. It is something your brain works to maintain actively all day long. Deep in the base of the brain and in the structures just above it, there are systems whose whole task is to keep you awake, to keep the great thinking sheet of the cortex alert and humming and alive to the world. These arousal systems send a steady upward stream of signals all day, a kind of constant wakeful energy pouring up into the higher brain, keeping the lights on, keeping you present and aware. One of these systems releases a particular substance that acts almost like a stabilizer for wakefulness, holding you firmly in the waking state, keeping you from slipping accidentally into sleep in the middle of the day. All day, these systems hold you up in the light of waking, steady and sure. But as the night comes on and the sleep pressure grows heavy and the signal of the clock rises, another player stirs in the hypothalamus near the front of the deep brain. There is a small cluster of cells that does the opposite work, where the arousal systems keep you awake. This cluster, when it grows active, reaches out and quiets them, one by one, turning them down, damping the wakeful stream. It is, in a sense, the brain's own off switch for waking, a gentle hand that reaches over and begins to turn down the lights. And here is the beautiful thing about how this is arranged. The waking systems and this sleep-bringing cluster each push against the other. When one is strong, it suppresses the other. And this means the brain does not drift endlessly in some vague middle state between waking and sleeping. Instead, it tends to settle firmly into one or the other, awake or asleep, and to flip between them cleanly, the way a switch clicks from off to on. Through the day, The waking side holds the switch, but as sleep pressure and the night together grow stronger, the balance shifts, until at last the sleep side gains the upper hand, and the switch tips, the wakeful systems held down now, full quiet. Their steady upward stream of arousal fades, and across the higher brain, the lights begin softly to go out. This is the great turning, the tipping of the switch from waking into sleep. And once it tips, the whole character of the brain begins to change. It helps to picture the waking systems not as one thing, but as many. For there is not a single switch of wakefulness, but a whole small orchestra of them. Several different systems deep in the brain, each with its own chemical messenger, all of them playing together through the day to keep you awake. One sends out a messenger that sharpens your focus. Another pours out a signal of alertness and readiness. And another releases a substance that simply keeps the brain generally awake and aware. A substance so tied to wakefulness that when a medicine blocks it, as some old remedies for sneezing and itching do, drowsiness comes flooding in. That heavy sleepiness you may have felt from an allergy pill is the feeling of one of your wakeful instruments being quietly muted in the middle of the day. All day, these several systems play together, a chord of wakefulness holding you up in the light. And as sleep comes on, as the switch tips, they fall silent, one after another, like the instruments of an orchestra lifting their bows and going still at the end of a long performance, until the great music of waking fades away into a deep and spreading quiet. And as that quiet spreads, you can feel its signs if you are still awake enough to notice them in your own eyes as the threshold of sleep draws near. The eyelids grow heavy, heavier and heavier, until it takes a real effort to lift them, and the blinks come slower and last longer, the eyes staying closed a beat longer each time, as though reluctant to open again at all. And beneath the closed lids, something gentle and telling begins to happen. The eyes, which all day darted quick and sharp from thing to thing, begin to drift. They roll slowly from side to side, softly, aimlessly, no longer fixing on anything, no longer searching, only wandering loose beneath the lids in slow, easy sweeps. This slow rolling of the eyes is one of the truest signs that sleep is arriving. A small, quiet tell of the body letting go. The gaze itself coming untethered and beginning to drift the way the mind is beginning to drift. If you have felt your eyes go soft and heavy and begin to wander behind their closed lids, you have felt the near approach of sleep in your own body. And all the while, the body's long readiness is draining away. All day, you have been quietly poised, your muscles faintly braced, your senses turned outward, your whole self subtly ready to meet whatever the day might bring. That readiness, held so long you never noticed it. Now, let's go. The bracing eases from the muscles. The outward turning of the senses relaxes and turns inward. The self stops leaning forward into the world and begins, at last, to settle back, to sink, to rest. It is a profound relief, this draining of readiness, though we rarely feel it directly, the setting down of a burden we have carried without knowing it all through the waking day. The first and most important of those changes happens at a gateway deep in the center of your brain, and it is perhaps the loveliest part of the whole story. Almost everything you sense from the outside world, everything you see and hear and feel, does not go straight to the thinking part of your brain. It passes first through a central relay station, a great crossroads deep in the middle of the head, through which nearly all the signals of the senses must travel on their way up to the cortex. All day, this gateway stands open, and the world pours through it freely, the sights and the sounds and the touches of your waking life flowing up into your awareness in an endless, bright stream. But as you fall asleep, this gateway begins to close. The relay station in the center of your brain, as sleep comes on, begins to damp down the signals passing through it, to soften them, to let less and less of the outside world flow up to the cortex above. It is as though a gatekeeper at the end of the long day begins slowly to swing shut a great door, and the noise and light of the world outside grow fainter and fainter as the door closes. This is why, as you drift towards sleep, the sounds of the room seem to recede, to grow distant and unimportant. The ticking of a clock, a voice in another room, the hum of the world outside your window, all of it begins to fade. Not because the sounds have stopped, but because your brain has begun to close the door through which they reach you. The world does not go silent. You simply stop being let in on it. The gate is closing, and behind it, in the quiet, sleep is waiting. And as that gate swings shut, the rhythm of the brain itself begins to change. And here we come to something remarkable, for the brain has its own rhythms, its own waves that shift and slow as sleep comes on. When you are wide awake and alert, focused on the world, the electrical activity of your brain is fast and small and busy. A quick, shallow chop of countless cells firing, out of step with one another, each attending to its own small task. This is the signature of the waking, working mind, fast and fine-grained and alert. But when you close your eyes and let yourself relax, when you stop straining outward at the world and turn quietly inward, the rhythm changes. A slower, smoother, more even wave begins to rise across the back of the brain, a calm, rolling rhythm that is the signature of relaxed and easy wakefulness, the rhythm of a mind at rest but not yet asleep, simply closing your eyes and letting go begins to summon it. It is the first soft music of the descent into sleep. And then, as you slip past the edge of waking, that calm rhythm gives way to something slower still. The even waves of relaxation fade, and in their place come the slower, drowsier rhythms of the first light stage of sleep, a gentle borderland between waking and true sleep. In this borderland, the brain slows and softens. Your thoughts begin to loosen and drift. The tight, directed thinking of the day comes apart, and your mind starts to wander, to float, to slide from one thing to another without your steering it. You are not quite awake anymore, and not yet deeply asleep. You are in the doorway, in the soft threshold, where the waking world and the world of sleep briefly overlap and blur together. This threshold has a character all its own, and you have surely visited it many times, though you may never have had a name for it. It is that strange, dreamy state at the very onset of sleep, when the mind begins to let go of the day and images start to rise unbidden. You may see drifting shapes and colors behind your closed eyes, faces, landscapes, patterns forming and dissolving. You may hear snatches of sound, a voice, your name, a fragment of music, all of it made by your own quieting brain. You may feel yourself drifting, floating, sinking. Your thoughts become strange and loose and dreamlike, sliding free of logic, following paths that would never make sense. In the bright light of day, this is the antechamber of sleep, the hypnagogic state, the soft, blurred country between waking and dreaming. And to pass through it is to feel the mind itself beginning to come untethered from the world. Why does the mind wander? So, as it lets go, it is because the part of you that normally holds the reins is quieting. Down at the very front of your brain, behind your forehead, sits the region that does your most careful, deliberate thinking, that plans and judges and keeps your thoughts marching in orderly lines, that watches over you and keeps you on task. All day, this watchful front part of the brain holds your mind together, directed and purposeful. But as sleep comes on, it too begins to quiet, to release its grip, to step back from its long day's work of steering. And when it loosens its hold, your thoughts are set free. They no longer march in orderly lines. They drift and scatter and wander where they will, leaping from one thing to another, throwing up strange images and stray memories and dreamlike fragments, following the loose, wild logic of the sleeping mind. The wandering of your mind as you fall asleep is not a failure. To sleep, it is the very feeling of the daytime brain letting go, of the reins slipping loose, of the self quietly loosening into the dark. Sometimes in this threshold, something small and curious happens just as you are slipping across the border into sleep. Your whole body may suddenly jerk, a single sharp twitch, often together with a vivid feeling of falling, of missing a step, of dropping through space. You may have felt it, that startle that yanks you back from the edge of sleep just as you were going under. It is a common thing and a harmless one, a little hiccup in the handover from waking to sleep, as though one part of the brain, in the confusion of letting go, sends out one last flare before it settles, and then it passes, and the falling feeling fades, and you settle back down again toward the border and cross it. And this time, you do not come back. Now you are truly asleep, in the light, sleep that lies just past the threshold. And even here, in this first true chamber of sleep, the brain is doing quiet and beautiful work. The wandering images of the threshold fade. Your awareness of the room is nearly gone now, the gate to the senses drawn almost shut. And across the sleeping brain there begin to appear brief flurries of activity, short, quick bursts of waves that flicker up and then subside, little spindles of electrical rhythm woven into the slow fabric of your sleep. These bursts are thought to be part of how the sleeping brain protects itself, how it holds the door shut against the outside world, damping down the disturbances that might otherwise wake you, keeping you safely under. And they are thought to be part, too, of how the brain sorts and files the experiences of the day while you sleep, quietly tidying and storing away the memories of your waking hours. Even now, only newly asleep, your brain is at work, guarding your rest and setting your memories in order. There are other great slow waves that rise in this light sleep too. Sudden, large sweeps of activity that seem to answer disturbances, that rise up in response to a sound or a stir, and then smooth themselves away as though the brain were reassuring itself, hushing itself, saying quietly, "All is well. Sleep on." Between these guarding bursts and these soothing waves, the light sleep holds you gently and keeps you carrying you deeper by slow degrees, further and further from the shore of waking, down toward the deep, still water that lies below. And then you begin to sink into the deepest sleep of all, and the rhythm of the brain slows and deepens into its grandest and most peaceful form. Gone now are the fast, busy waves of waking, gone the calm, rolling rhythm of relaxation, gone even the flickering bursts of light sleep. In their place come great slow waves, deep and broad and unhurried, rolling across the whole brain in long, majestic swells, each one sweeping the vast sheet of the cortex almost as one. In this deepest sleep, huge numbers of the brain's cells, which all day fired each on their own private schedule, fall into a slow shared rhythm together, rising and falling in unison, like a great crowd breathing as one, and the brain, so busy and fractured and various all through the day, becomes for a while a single, slow, calm sea. This is the deep sleep, the still center of the night, and it is here that so much of the restoration of sleep is done. It is the hardest sleep to wake from, a sound that would have stirred you. In light sleep passes over you now unnoticed. You are deep down beneath the reach of the world, in the slow, quiet dark, and in this deep place the body sets about its repair. This is when the deepest physical restoration takes place, when the body mends and rebuilds, when certain restoring processes run most strongly, when the long day's wear is quietly made good. It is the most physically restful sleep there is, the deep foundation on which a whole night's rest is built, and the brain, too, cleanse itself in this deep sleep, in one of the most remarkable discoveries of recent times. All through the busy day, as your brain works, it gathers waste, the leftover residue of all that thinking, including the very substance that built up your sleep pressure in the first place. And during deep sleep, it seems, the brain washes itself clean, the spaces between its cells open, and fluid flows through, carrying away the waste of the day, flushing out the residue, clearing the mind for the morning. In a sense, the very pressure that pushed you down into sleep is washed away by the sleep it brought on. so that you wake in the morning with the weight lifted, the slate wiped clean, the pressure gone and ready to begin building again through a new day. It is a perfect quiet circle, the day building the pressure, the night washing it away. And while the body mends and the brain washes itself clean, another quiet labor is going on in the depths of your sleep, a labor of memory. All through the day, you gather experiences, a great flood of them, faces and words and places, and feelings, far more than you could ever hold onto. Through the day, these are held loosely, freshly, in a part of the brain that catches new memories quickly, but cannot keep them for long. And in the night, as you sleep, the brain sorts through this great heap of the day, deciding quietly what to keep and what to let go, and taking the memories worth keeping and settling them deeper, weaving them into the vast web of all you know, moving them from the fragile store of the moment into the long-lasting keeping of the mind, the slow waves and the little flurries of light sleep are part of how this is done, a nightly conversation between the parts of the brain that hold the new and the parts that hold the old, passing the day's memories carefully from hand to hand, filing them away while you rest. You wake in the morning not only cleaned and mended, but sorted. Your yesterday quietly put in order while you slept. And there is one more country of sleep we have only glimpsed, the country of dreams, which you will not reach on this first descent, but only later, deeper in the night. For after you have sunk down into the deep, slow sleep and risen again, you pass into a stranger place, a kind of sleep in which the brain grows almost as active as it is in waking, bright and busy and alive, and yet you sleep on, and your body lies still and soft, held gently motionless so that you cannot act out the visions passing through your mind. This is the country of dreams, vivid and wild and full of feeling, where the sleeping brain tells itself long, strange stories in the dark. But it lies ahead of you tonight, hours away, past the first deep sleep and beyond. For now, You are only beginning the descent, only crossing the first threshold, only sinking down toward the first deep stillness of the night. The dreaming will come later on its own, without your seeking it, as the night carries you round and down and up and down again through all its slow and turning chambers. It is worth marveling for a moment that we know any of this at all, for the inside of sleep was a mystery to us for almost the whole of human history. For thousands of years, no one could say what happened in the sleeping head. Sleep looked from the outside like a simple switching off, a little death, a blank in which nothing happened until you woke. It was only within the last 100 years or so that we learned to listen to the faint electrical rhythms of the living brain, to place gentle sensors against the sleeping head and read the rise and fall of its waves. And when we did, a hidden world opened. We discovered that sleep is not a blank at all, not a switching off, but a rich and active and beautifully ordered process, a journey through distinct chambers, each with its own rhythm and its own work. We learned that the sleeping brain is busy, mending and cleaning and sorting, guarding and dreaming, all through the night. The old idea of sleep as a simple absence fell away, and in its place came this astonishing picture of the nightly voyage every one of us makes down through the slow waves and the dreaming and back, over and over in the dark. And the strangest part is that you have been making this voyage all your life, every night, and living the whole rich hidden story of it without ever once having to know that it was there. For this is the oldest and most universal of all the things that living creatures do. Every human being who has ever lived has fallen asleep every night in just this way, the same slow descent, the same closing gate, the same drifting mind, the same sinking into the deep. The kings and the shepherds of the ancient world lay down and crossed the same soft threshold you are crossing now. And it is not only us. Nearly every animal that has ever been studied sleeps, or does something very like it. The great whales sleep, drifting in the deep sea. The birds sleep, some of them on the wing, some resting half their brain at a time. The smallest creatures, down to the tiniest insects, fall into a still and quiet state that looks, for all the world, like sleep. This thing that is happening to you now, this letting go, this gentle sinking into the dark, is one of the deepest and most ancient rhythms of all life, shared by nearly every creature that has ever drawn breath, stretching back and back through countless ages to the very beginnings of living things. You are doing tonight what life has done every night since, almost the beginning. You are in the oldest and safest company there is. So, this is the shape of it, the great gentle descent that your brain makes every single night, from the busy fast waves of the waking day down into the calm rolling rhythm of eyes closed rest, down across the soft threshold with its wandering images, down into the guarded chambers of light sleep, and down at last into the deep, slow waves of the stillest sleep of all. It is not a fall, though we call it falling asleep. It is a slow and orderly descent, a settling, a sinking by gentle stages, like going down a long staircase in the dark, each step a little deeper, a little quieter, a little further from the day, until you reach the bottom and the deep, still water closes over you, and you are wholly, peacefully asleep. And there is a tenderness in knowing that this first deep sleep, the one you are sinking toward now, is the deepest and the richest of the whole night. The slow waves never roll, so broad and so strong again as they do in these first descents. Early in the night, when the pressure of the long day is at its very heaviest and pushes you down into the deepest stillness there is. As the night goes on and the pressure eases, cycle by cycle, the deep sleep grows lighter and the dreaming grows longer, so that the profound, restoring stillness is front-loaded into the early hours, given to you first when you need it most. This first long slide into the deep is the treasure of the night, the deepest rest you will have, and it is waiting for you now, just below, needing only that you let yourself keep sinking toward it, And as you sink, remember that you are not sinking alone. All across the darkened half of the world tonight, countless others are crossing the very threshold you are crossing, lying down in the dark and letting the day dissolve, their clocks reading the same darkness, their sleep pressure grown heavy in the same way, their gates swinging quietly shut, their minds beginning to wander and drift in houses and rooms beyond counting. The same slow descent is unfolding, the same switch tipping, the same great slow waves gathering and rolling out across sleeping brains without number, the whole night side of the earth settling by soft degrees into sleep. It is the most ordinary thing in the world and the most universal, this laying down of the day, and you are held tonight within a vast and quiet company of sleepers, human and animal, near and far, all of you sinking together into the same old dark as living things have done every night since the beginning. There is comfort in that, in being one small sleeper among so many carried down on the same ancient tide. Think of the whole slow settling once more and let the picture soothe you. Think of a town at the end of the day, the windows glowing gold, and then, one by one, hour by hour, the lights going out, room by room, house by house, until the whole town lies dark and still beneath the stars. Your brain, tonight, is such a town at evening. All day, every window was lit, every room awake and busy and bright. And now, gently, the lights are going out. The bright, vast rooms of alert attention go dark first. Then the calm lit rooms of easy rest. Then the flickering rooms of the threshold with their drifting images, dim and go quiet. And at last, the whole vast town of the mind settles into the deep, slow dark. Only the faithful night watchman still awake somewhere, keeping his single quiet vigil, while everything else sleeps. Room by room, the lights are going out. In you now, softly, in order, exactly as they should, exactly as they have every night of your life. And in the morning, when the slow tide of sleep has done its long night's work and begins at last to carry you back up toward the light. You will surface renewed. The pressure that pushed you down will be gone, washed away in the deep. The day's memories will be sorted and stored. Your yesterday quietly put in order. The body will be mended, the mind swept clean, the great weight lifted. You will open your eyes into a new morning with the slate wiped fresh and the whole cycle ready to begin again. The clock reading the returning light, the pressure ready to start its slow, patient building through another day, toward another night, toward another gentle crossing of this same soft threshold. But that is the morning's business, far away and hours off. Between here and there lies the whole long night and all its slow turning chambers and the deep, sweet rest that is gathering to receive you now. And you do not simply stay at the bottom all night long. Sleep, it turns out, is not one single unbroken thing, but a journey that repeats, that rises and falls through the night in long, slow cycles. Having sunk down into the deep, slow sleep, you will, after a while, begin gently to rise again toward lighter sleep and pass in time into the strange, vivid country of dreams, and then sink back down once more toward the depths and rise again over and over through the night in a long, slow rhythm of descent and return. Each full turn of this cycle takes something like an hour and a half, and across a whole night you will make the journey several times, down and up and down again, through the deep, still sleep and the dreaming, and back, riding the long, slow swells of the night. But all of that lies ahead of you. Later, deeper in the dark. Tonight, we have only followed you to the edge and over it and down the first long slope into sleep. Before we follow you further down, it is worth pausing on the small things that help the brain make this crossing and the things that hold it back. For the great machinery of sleep is delicate, and it takes its cues from the world around you. Chief among those cues is light. Remember that the inner clock reads the light of the world through your eyes, and takes its bearings from it, learning the hour of the day from the brightness of the sky. This means that light late in the evening can confuse it. When bright light reaches the clock after dark, from a lamp, from a glowing screen held close to the face, the clock may read it as a lingering day and hold back the rising of the night hormone, delaying the signal of sleep, pushing the whole descent later into the night. This is why a dim and darkening evening helps you sleep, and a bright, glaring one hinders it. As the light softens and fades around you, the clock understands that night has truly come and lets the hormone of darkness rise and begins in earnest to prepare you for rest. The old wisdom of dimming the lamps and quieting the house as bedtime nears is, it turns out, exactly what the ancient clock inside you is waiting for. And in the morning, the opposite is true and just as important. Bright light early in the day reaches the clock and anchors it, sets it firmly, tells it clearly that the day has begun, and strengthens the whole rhythm so that when night comes again, it will fall all the more surely towards sleep. The clock is tuned by the great alternation of light and dark, and it keeps its best time when it is given a bright day and a dark night clearly marked, the way our ancestors always knew them, under the open sky. The more clearly the clock can tell day from night, the more smoothly it will carry you down into sleep when the darkness comes. There is a gift of warmth in the story, too, one you can feel for yourself. You will remember that as sleep comes on, the body sheds a little of its heat, letting the core cool as the warmth flows out to the skin of the hands and the feet. There is an old and simple comfort that works with this very rhythm. A warm bath in the hour before bed, or a warm drink cradled in the hands, warms the skin and opens the small vessels near its surface. And this, in turn, helps the body release its inner heat more freely afterward, so that the core cools more deeply and sleep comes more easily. In the cooling that follows, it seems a small paradox that warming yourself should help you cool towards sleep. But that is exactly how it works. The warmth draws the heat outward, and the outward flow of heat is one of the body's oldest signals that the time for rest has come. A cool, dark room and a warm body settling into it, the heat drifting out to the hands and the feet, the core sinking gently toward its nighttime low, is the very picture of a body preparing well for sleep. And there is one more piece of the machinery worth glimpsing, for it shows just how finely balanced the great switch between waking and sleeping truly is. You will recall that one of the wakeful systems releases a special substance that acts as a stabilizer, a steadying hand that holds you firmly in the waking state through the day and keeps you from tipping accidentally into sleep. This stabilizer is what makes your waking solid and continuous, so that you do not flicker in and out of sleep at odd moments, so that once you are awake, you stay awake until the night. In rare cases, when the small population of cells that make this steadying substance is lost, the switch loses its stabilizer and grows unsteady, and a person may tip suddenly into sleep in the middle of the day, or feel the boundaries between waking and dreaming blur and give way. It is an unusual thing, but it reveals by its absence what that quiet stabilizer does for the rest of us every day, holding the switch steady on the side of waking until the proper hour, and then when the night comes and the pressure is heavy, allowing it to tip cleanly over into sleep. The very steadiness of your waking and the cleanness of your falling asleep depend on this delicate balance held quietly in your favor, night after night, without your ever knowing it is there. There is a subtle thing worth understanding about those two great forces that carry you down into sleep: the pressure of the day and the clock of the night. For they do not simply add together in a straight line. If sleep pressure alone ruled you, then you would grow steadily, relentlessly sleepier with every passing hour of the day, drooping a little more each hour from the moment you woke until you could not keep your eyes open. But that is not how it feels, is it? Through most of the day, you feel reasonably steady, reasonably awake, not sliding hour by hour, toward collapse. And the reason is that the inner clock does not only bring on sleep at night, through the day it does the opposite. It sends out a rising signal of alertness, a wakeful call that climbs through the daylight hours, and this rising alertness pushes back against the mounting pressure of sleep, holding you up, keeping you steady, matching the growing weight of tiredness with a growing call to wake, so that the two roughly balance and you sail through the day on an even keel. There is one soft exception to this steadiness, and you have surely felt it. In the early afternoon, the clock's rising call to wakefulness dips. For a while, a small natural lull in the middle of the day, and in that lull, the pressure of sleep, no longer so firmly opposed, makes itself felt. This is the drowsiness that steals over so many of us in the quiet hours after midday, the heaviness of the early afternoon, and it is no failing and no accident. It is written into the clock itself, a gentle trough in the day's alertness. And across much of the world, people have always answered it in the same way, by lying down for a little, while in the heat of the afternoon, and letting themselves drift into a short and welcome sleep. The clock dips. The pressure rises to meet it, and for an hour the pull toward rest returns. A small daytime echo of the great crossing that waits at the end of every day. A brief rest taken then, before the deep, slow waves have time to gather, can lift the fog and leave you refreshed. And then the clock climbs back toward its evening peak, and the long, steady afternoon of waking resumes carrying you on toward the night. And then, in the evening, the clock's wakeful signal reaches its peak and begins to withdraw. It falls away gently, just as the darkness comes on and the hormone of the night begins to rise. And now, with the wakeful signal gone, there is nothing left to hold back the great weight of sleep pressure that has been building all day. All at once, the balance tips. The pressure, no longer opposed, sweeps you down towards sleep. This is why sleepiness so often seems to arrive not gradually, but in a wave in the evening, why you can feel quite awake at 1 hour and be struggling to stay up an hour or two later. The clock has simply stepped aside and let the long day's tiredness do what it always wanted to do. The two forces, so long in balance, at last both point the same way, downward toward rest. When these two are in harmony, when the clock says night, at the same hour that the pressure has grown heavy, sleep comes easily and sweetly. But you may have felt what happens when they fall out of step, travel far to the east or the west, and your inner clock, still keeping the time of the place you left, may insist it is day when the sky outside says night, or night when the world says morning, and you lie awake at the wrong hour, or nod off at another, your two great sleep forces pulling against each other instead of together. It takes days for the clock to catch up, resetting itself little by little each morning by the light, until at last it agrees again with the world outside, and sleep comes smoothly once more. It is a small window onto the machinery. This feeling of being out of step, a reminder of the two quiet forces that must line up before the brain can easily let go. Let us turn back now to your body lying here in the dark, and to all the quiet ways it is settling towards sleep along with your brain, for the descent into sleep is not a thing of the mind alone. As the wakeful systems fall quiet and the great switch tips, a soft heaviness begins to spread through your muscles. All day your muscles hold a faint, constant tension, a low readiness, keeping you upright, keeping you poised to move. And as sleep comes on, that readiness drains away. The muscles let go. The tension that has held your body all day melts, and your limbs grow heavy and sink and settle deeper into the bed. Your jaw loosens, your shoulders drop, your hands uncurl. The face, which holds so much expression through the day, goes smooth and slack and peaceful. The whole body, by slow degrees, is being set down, laid gently to rest, released from the long day's holding. Your heartbeat slows and steadies. Your breathing grows deep and slow and regular, each breath a little longer, a little quieter than the one before. The pace of everything within you eases. The body, like the brain, is powering down for the night, dropping out of the quick, bright tempo of the day into the slow, calm rhythm of sleep. And you can feel it happening if you lie quietly and notice this settling, this slowing, this sweet, heavy sinking of the whole body toward rest. And yet, even as the gate to the senses swings almost shut, even as the world grows faint and far away, your brain does not stop listening entirely. It keeps a thread of watchfulness, a single ear cocked toward the dark, on guard for anything that truly matters. This is why a parent, sleeping soundly through the loud and meaningless noises of the night, will wake at once to the small cry of their child. It is why a particular sound, your own name spoken softly, a smell of smoke, a sense that something is wrong, can reach through even deep sleep and pull you up to waking, while far louder but meaningless sounds pass over you unnoticed. The sleeping brain is not simply switched off, deaf to the world. It is filtering, sorting, weighing, holding the gate shut against everything harmless and unimportant, but keeping the way open for the one signal that might truly need you. You can let go completely, sink all the way down, and trust that some faithful part of you remains quietly on watch and will wake you if it must. And only if it must. There is a deep safety in that, a permission to release yourself entirely into sleep. Consider, as you lie here, the great quiet mystery at the very heart of all this, which is what becomes of your awareness as you go, when you fall asleep, your consciousness, that sense of being someone, here, now, awake in a room, does not simply switch off like a snuffed candle. It fades, it thins, it comes apart by soft degrees. One moment you are following a thought, aware of yourself thinking it, and a little later the thread has slipped and the thought has wandered, and the watcher who was following it has quietly dissolved, and you did not feel it go. The self loosens and softens and lets go of itself, gently, without alarm. And where a moment ago there was a person lying awake in the dark, there is now only sleep. No one can catch the instant of their own crossing, for the one who would catch it is the very thing that is dissolving. It is the softest vanishing there is, a self setting itself down and stepping quietly out of the light, night after night, and finding itself again, whole and rested in the morning. And this is why falling asleep can never be forced, and why the harder you try, the further it flees. Sleep is a letting go of exactly the effort that trying requires. To try to fall asleep is to hold on, to keep the watcher awake and straining, and the watcher's straining is the one thing that keeps the gate from closing. You cannot grip your way down into sleep. You can only release your way there. And so, if your mind is busy tonight, if thoughts are still turning, if the day will not quite let go of you, there is no need to fight them, for fighting is only more holding on. Let the thoughts come and let them go without chasing them and without pushing them away. Let them drift across the dark like clouds across a night sky, and pay them no mind. And in their own time, they will thin and scatter, and the space between them will widen. And into that widening quiet, the sleep you are not chasing will quietly come of its own accord. The secret is that there is no effort to make. There is only effort to release. Let your breathing help you, if you like. For the breath is the one part of this great settling that you can gently feel and follow. Notice it now, the slow rise and fall of it, without changing it, only following it. The cool breath in, the warm breath out, the small pause at the bottom of each one. With every breath out, let a little more of the day go. Let the shoulders drop a little further. Let the weight of the body sink a little deeper into the bed. The breath slows all on its own as sleep approaches, growing longer and softer and more even. And by simply resting your attention on it, by letting it be slow and letting it be deep, you fall into step with the very rhythm of sleep coming on. The breath is the tide that carries you out. You have only to float on it and let it take you. There is nothing left for you to do now but this. The day is behind you. Its tasks are finished, or they are not. And either way, they will keep until morning. The pressure of your long waking has grown heavy and sweet and is pulling you down. The clock inside you has read the darkness and loosed the signal of the night. The switch is tipping. The gate is closing. The waves are slowing and deepening. Every part of the vast old machinery of sleep is turning quietly in your favor, doing for you now what it has done every night of your life, and asking nothing of you in return but that you stop holding on and let yourself be carried. Let us go back now and rest for a while in the threshold, in that soft, blurred country at the very edge of sleep, because it is such a strange and lovely place, and because you may be passing through it even now. The border between waking and sleeping is not a sharp line, but a wide, soft margin. A whole country of its own, and the mind does curious things as it crosses. Time loses its shape there. A few minutes in the threshold can feel like a long, drifting age, or like no time at all. The boundary between your thoughts and the world outside grows thin and porous. A real sound in the room may weave itself into the images rising behind your eyes, becoming part of a half dream even as it reaches you. You may catch yourself in a thought that has already begun to turn strange, already sliding into the logic of dreams, and not know quite when your thinking stopped making ordinary sense. Many people in this threshold have their most creative and surprising thoughts, for as the orderly daytime mind loosens its grip, unexpected connections form, ideas drift together that would never meet in the bright light of day. Across history, more than a few discoverers and artists and inventors have found their answers here, in the drifting state at the edge of sleep, when the mind was free to wander untethered and stumble upon what waking thought had missed. There is a wisdom in the loosening, a kind of gift in the letting go. The wandering mind, so often scolded in the daytime as a failure of focus, becomes at the edge of sleep a wanderer through wide open country, free to roam wherever it will. The images that rise in this threshold are often drawn quietly from the day just past, and especially from whatever you did over and over. If you spent the day walking a long trail, you may find yourself at the edge of sleep, still walking it, the path unrolling endlessly behind your closed eyes. If you spent hours sorting or stacking or fitting things together, those same shapes may drift up and arrange themselves in the dark. As you fall, the threshold mind reaches back into the day and replays its patterns, softly, without your bidding, turning the day's doings into the drifting scenery of sleep's front porch. It is a gentle kind of echo, the day murmuring itself over one last time as it lets you go, and there is nothing to do but watch it drift by on the way down. And here is a curious thing about this borderland. We are poor judges from the inside of whether we have crossed it, roused gently from the first minutes of true sleep. Many people are certain they were still awake the whole time, that they had not slept at all. So seamless and soft is the passage across the line. The crossing leaves no clear mark in memory, no felt moment of before and after. And so the mind, looking back, cannot find the seam and assumes there was none. This is worth knowing and worth taking comfort from on any night when sleep seems slow to come. You may already be dipping across the threshold again and again in small, soft touches without knowing it, even as you lie there feeling wakeful. The border is far nearer than it seems, and you may be brushing against it even now, more asleep already than you would ever guess. And that is really the deepest truth of falling asleep. It is an act of letting go. All day you hold yourself together, you direct your attention, you steer your thoughts, you keep yourself upright and awake and present in the world. And it takes effort, constant, quiet effort, to do it. Falling asleep is the release of that effort. It is the moment you finally stop holding on, stop steering, stop keeping watch, and allow yourself to come apart gently into the dark. You cannot force it. You cannot grip your way into sleep, for the very gripping keeps you awake. You can only let go and allow the great old machinery of the sleeping brain, which knows exactly what to do and has done it every night of your life, to carry you down. Your only task is to stop holding on, and your brain will do the rest. It knows the way. It has closed the gate to the senses 1,000 times before. It has quieted the front of the mind and loosened the reins of thought and tipped the great switch from waking into sleep, night after night after night, since before you can remember, since the very beginning of your life. You do not have to know how it works. You do not have to do anything at all. You have only to lie here in the warm dark and let the pressure of the long day and the deep signal of the night do what they have been building toward all along, which is simply to let you rest. So let go. Now, a little more. Feel the weight of the day settling into the bed beneath you. Feel the warmth spreading gently to your hands and your feet as your body cools towards sleep. Feel the sounds of the room growing distant and soft as the gate quietly closes. There is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to be. The clock inside you has read the darkness and sent out its signal of the night. The pressure of the long day has grown heavy and sweet. The great switch is ready to tip. All the slow machinery of sleep is turning quietly in your favor, and all it asks of you is that you let go. Let the thoughts wander where they will. Do not chase them. Do not steer them. Let them drift and scatter and float free, for their wandering is the very feeling of sleep coming on, the reins slipping loose, the day letting go of you. At last, if an image rises behind your eyes, let it rise. If a thought turns strange and dreamlike, let it turn. You are crossing the soft threshold now, the wide, gentle margin between waking and sleep, and there is nothing to do here but drift. The gate is closing. The world grows faint. The room recedes. The slow waves are gathering, deep and calm, ready to carry you down. Your breathing has slowed. Your body has cooled and softened into the bed. The front of your mind has loosened its long grip, and your thoughts are floating free now, drifting, wandering, coming untethered from the day, down and down by gentle stages, past the calm, rolling rhythm of rest, past the drifting images of the threshold, down toward the guarded quiet of the deeper dark, where the great slow waves are waiting to close over you like deep still water. There is nothing to hold on to now, nothing to keep watch over, nothing to do but sink. Let go. Let the day dissolve. Let the mind wander out into the dark and not come back. The gate is closing. The waves are slowing. The light is going out. Softly, room by room, behind your eyes, warm, dark, slow waves, the world far away now, drifting down, letting go, sleep.